Welcome back, we're Happy Chappers. So, dreams. Um, been having a lot of deep dreams this weather, and I'm going to talk about one as it happened yesterday, but it just keeps coming back to me. Even last night, I had another dream, and as deep as it was, the night before's dream keeps coming back to me. So, I'm here, and as the dream went, it was a group of children on the bus. And it was like I was looking through the eyes of the teacher who was with them. And I couldn't see the bus driver's face, but it seemed like it was a man who was driving. And later on in the dream, what I found was that when the man would be on the phone, it came across in a vibration to me that it was a man who was speaking. And so what had happened was they were going on a journey, and while on the move, the front wheel of the bus on the driver's side had blown out. And as the wheel blew out, the driver pulled into the side and was in on the grass. And the driver hopped out of the bus and got onto the phone and started chatting to whoever was higher above him to get it sorted out. And so, as I was seeing through the eyes of the teacher, I got out and I went to the side of the bus where the wheel had blown out. While at the same time, the bus driver was across the road on the other side on the phone chatting. And this was, I don't even know if you can get this, um, 3-axle bus. It had 2 wheels at the back and 1 at the front. And on the back there were double wheels. And so when I went round and looked at the bus, what I could see was the front wheel had blown out, but on the back axles, 2 of the wheels had come off and there was no wheel nuts. And the other 2 wheels that were sitting on, which was 1 on each axle, was sitting like that. They were about to come off. And so there was nothing to hold the bus up. It was that possibility if them wheels slipped that the bus could tumble. And so I went around and I explained it to the bus driver, and the bus driver wasn't listening. And he was speaking to whatever was said. It was that he was trying to get someone or to get time in his day where he was going to get away from having to do anything more, get his day off and have this all recovered by the means of his company. And so while he was chatting, it had me thinking about these children. How are we going to get the children off the bus safely? And when he was on the phone, it was like there was no care. And it was all about him and what trouble this bus had brought to him. And this is what he was explaining to whoever was above him or on the other side of the phone. And it was going to take a while for someone to come to help get the bus moved out. Now, there's a lot of things to look at, and I know it was just a dream, but it's something that things that we do in our life. We don't look at the bigger picture. We always bring it down to a smaller picture and cramp it in to ourselves. But most of the time we don't even look at ourselves, but when there's trouble, we're looking at ourselves to see if we can get out of the big happening. Maybe if we'd done that generally in life, we wouldn't get into that trouble to look at ourselves to get out of. And so this is what this man was doing. So what I seen was he wasn't considering who was on the bus, the children. As I recall, he didn't even go round and check the side of the bus. He knew the wheel was blown out because he'd looked down as he was driving. I'd seen this in the dream, and the wheel had blown out. And so he'd pulled it, but he didn't see the back. And so what I seen was the responsibility that he was given to drive that bus and look after them children. Well, it wasn't there. And he tried to place the responsibility onto the company and have them come and finish up whatever needed to get that bus on the go again, or to get it moved and get a new bus, and to get the children out of there and get them home or wherever they were going on their journey. Where he'd went through enough that day that he didn't need to be going through anymore. And the safety, the responsibility did not come into question in his mind. There was no care whatsoever. And I believe we do this when we zone into ourselves in these matters of danger. Where if we're used to zoning into ourselves in a time of danger, we can spread out and open wide into the bigger picture so we can take everything in and see what's the best moves in that time, what's the appropriate moves to take in that time. And so in that case, what he should have been doing was ringing the emergency and also possibly seeing if there's a way to support that bus, like take a wheel nut off or get a wheel nut or a couple of wheel nuts to put on the other side. Although he would be putting himself at risk, but wouldn't have that been a lot easier to make sure the safety of that bus, for the safety of them children, to do than leaving that risk there of their lives, where he just played on the phone and tried to cover up and skip time so he would get paid for it and didn't have to do any more on that day. And so I just thought of the risks to move the children, because any disturbance, them wheels could have popped off even. And so there needed to be some kind of security on one side of the bus or on the inside driver's side of the bus to keep it up or stop it from falling. And the Simplest way would have been to put wheel nuts on the back wheels to stop them other wheels from coming off. Now, the vibration of that could change the position of the bus where it could turn. And so that would also become dangerous. And if we were to get the children off the bus, we would have to get the door open again, which means we'd get the bus driver back in on the driver's side to open the door, or possibly there'd be a button on the outside. I'm just guessing. We could get that door open and get them off one by one. But if we could not tell the children about their position, we would have to move them slowly, and how we would move them from the bus would be another thing. We couldn't move them all together, because if there was so many on the bus and they want to get up, we would have to look at that vibration and weight. So we'd have to move them, which I thought was move them from the back up to the front and let them out. As if it was going to tip at any stage, it would be the back that would go down. As we still had the wheel at the front, it was just blowing out. And so we get them slowly to remove them from the back and get them off the bus until we had everybody off the bus. Then maybe we could support the bus in putting the wheel nuts on. Possibly do the two at the same time, where the teacher could have took the children off and the bus driver be working on putting the wheel nuts on the back end of the bus. Anyway, I don't know if this has much meaning to you, but my point is the negligence. How we neglect what is really happening when we start zooming into just ourselves. And we're regularly, as beings in this world, caught up with the world. And so we're looking at the bigger picture and we're all scattered because there's so much going on. But when something negative happens, we turn into ourselves and we start focusing on us in a fight or flight mode to get out of there in safety. But we're not thinking about others. And if we were able to learn to think about ourselves generally, when there's a risky situation like this, we could take a bigger picture and look at it and start thinking about the others as we zoom out from ourselves and then come back into ourselves with that bigger picture and taking them moves while also keeping ourselves in safety. But we must take a look at the bigger picture to see who all's involved and what is the safety of that. Now, God forbid, but if anything had happened, if that was a true story and that bus had went over and something happened to any of the children, would that man still be carrying on the way he carried on the phone through his days forward? And if he would, what type of a person would that be? And why would you want to put yourself into such a risk? Was that ever even thought of? When they were moving into that job or position, did they think that what my duty is for these children? It's not just to drive a bus. It's to protect these children when they're in my bus, to look after them and keep them safe. Was that really thought of? Because when you look at the results of it, none of that was thought of. And if it was very quickly forgotten when he was thinking about his own position. And so, whatever job or whatever actions that we could be caught up in life that could take us into these situations, we must spread our mind open, widen it, and look at the whole scene and see what's most important, what action to take in that time, and not to turn into ourselves and think that it's about us and how we could get away with um, cutting corners, so to speak, so he could get more time for himself while getting paid for that day because it wasn't his fault, is how he was seeing it and how he was explaining it across the phone. And because they couldn't get out to move the bus, but he had never explained to the other party about the position of the bus because he didn't know it himself. He instantly got onto the phone to see about getting the bus sorted out for the blown out wheel, but neglected to go around and check or to see the other wheels that were missing with no wheel nuts on. And so that left neglect. And we could say maybe he was unaware of the children, but that's neglect because he didn't go and check. And maybe if he did go and check, that he would have thought more about getting the children off the bus. But the children wasn't in his mind. And if there had been, maybe that would have been more important of a move they would have made, but it wasn't. The move was to see what he could do for himself out of the situation. And so I find that we do this as beings in this world because we are caught up in everything around us. That's not to say that that person is a bad person or a good person if it was a real person. What I'm saying is they get caught up in the world because they wanted to get something better for themselves out of the whole situation. And when we look at the bigger picture of a unity, we start thinking of everybody that's involved instead of thinking of ourselves and separating ourselves to be better than another. And so we look at it as an equal. And so everybody that's in our company or scene, whatever happens, is as important to us as our own life. And so I think we should take a bigger look at this and how we think in our general way of thinking every day. Are we looking at the bigger picture? Are we turning in? And it's not the matter of staying at one way where you're turned out looking at the bigger picture, or you're turned in just looking at self. It's something that we must do constantly, turning in and out as we look at both areas and getting a bigger picture of the whole of ourselves and the whole scene. And maybe we get better results, is all I'm saying. Anyway, this was just my dream, and I thought there was a lot of neglect in it. And it's something that we see in our lives in this world. We neglect a lot just because of our greed and our ego to want things in our life to turn out what's best for us and not seeing what's best for the bigger party. Hopefully this can help you see something in your life in this way. Or maybe you're fine in your life and that you don't need to look at it. You do see the bigger picture and also can turn in to see what's best for you while looking at what's best for the bigger picture. Anyway, thank you for watching and love and peace.